Colin Kaepernick's right to protest the anthem, but he plans on standing. And Carmelo Anthony said he admires Kaepernick's protest, but says he will also stand. So unlike the NFL, the NBA has a rule that states players must stand respectfully during the playing of the national anthem before all games. Max, should players be protesting tonight?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. The answer is yes, they should, and I'll tell you why. Because they should follow their conscience. And if there are 450 players in the league, 30 teams, 15 players on each roster, 450 players, and 1% of them feel that their conscience is telling them that they want to do this, and I would say based on what we've seen in the NFL, that's a pretty good guess. That's 4 or 5 guys who probably don't want to stand to make a statement. And if that's the case, especially we see this way this divides NFL locker rooms along racial lines, it's a youth issue, it's among African Americans especially, and this is a predominantly African American league, the NBA. If 4 or 5 guys at least conscience is telling them, that's 1% of the league, I shouldn't stand, then they shouldn't, especially because the commissioner, Adam Silver, has shown himself so far to be seemingly a socially conscious person who's encouraged protest on social issues. Whatever you think of whether it's right or wrong to stand, what it shows, whether it's immature or whether it's a responsible and courageous protest, whatever your feeling is, we know that many feel it's the right thing to do as a percentage of the population, even 1% in a large country. As I mentioned, that's 4 or 5 guys in the league. And if Adam Silver is, in fact, this kind of commissioner, and he inherited the rule, in the NFL, you're not obligated to stand. In the NBA, you are by the rule. If he inherited this rule, this is a good excuse to bring it to a head where he can actually either choose not to enforce it, and then we see it's a toothless rule, or he can maybe take it off the books or start that process. So I think it's important that the players follow what they think is right, and based on the numbers, I gotta believe there's at least a handful of players who would think it's right.
Max, I'm going to respectfully disagree with you, as shocking as that may be, on this particular issue in terms of whether or not the players should protest tonight. Here's why. First of all, the statements have already been made. They've been made profoundly so. Now we've graduated to a point where we have to start asking ourselves, what exactly are you going to do with the noise that has been made by Colin Kaepernick, Eric Reed, and other various players throughout the NFL community? In the NBA, yes, there is a rule that stipulates you must stand to honor the national anthem. Yes, Colin Kaepernick took his position because he wanted to bring attention to racial injustice and prejudices that have been taking place in our community. But there comes a point in time where simply raising your fist or getting on one knee, the point is made. Now what are you going to do about it? Because certainly we have the bodies, we have the resources, and enough people in our nation are conscientious enough to take this to another level. When Chris Paul, Dwayne Wade, Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James introed the ESPYs to bring attention to some of the things that have taken place. Yes, it wasn't a polarizing issue because the things that they said and what they were bringing attention to, nobody could disagree with it, whereas people could disagree with Colin Kaepernick. And as wrong as I think those people were to disagree with him, because Colin Kaepernick did specifically point out that in no way was he pointing his finger at our military servicemen and women who honorably represent our nation and serve and protect us. The fact of the matter is there are a plethora of people within the United States of America that have adopted that position. And because they've adopted that position, you never know what the fallout is going to be. And we don't think enough about that sometimes. Certainly that shouldn't dissuade you from taking stances. But at the same time, you've got to reach a point where you're willing to ask yourself, how effective is it going to be, A, and B, what is the potential fallout to the potential benefit of it? We got a presidential election that has clearly divided our nation. You're forced to take one side or another. Colin Kaepernick has forced you to take one side or another. Everybody wants to stand up and tell these NBA players, even the average one or the less than average ones, the ones that are lucky to have a job, all right, take this position and fight for this and fight for that. And ain't a damn one of those individuals going to be around to help pay your bills when you can't find a damn job because you're being ostracized or victimized. I'm taking all of that into consideration. If none of this had ever happened, I would get you. But the fact that Colin Kaepernick and others have made the noise that they've made, and let us not forget that the NBA and the Players Association are in the throes of a collective bargaining agreement.
That's what I wanted to bring up.
And you've got to put yourself in a position where you can make some noise and you don't jeopardize the kind of cachet that you're building with that audience you're looking to patronize your product. You got to take all those things into consideration and be smart.
I certainly respect that position. I think it's well thought out. I'm not arguing that you have to take a stance. I'm saying you should follow your conscience. And it's awfully convenient because there's a lot of money on the line in the CBA right now for some to argue to players. I'm not arguing that you're saying that here, but for some to get in players' ears now and say there's a tremendous amount of money on the line. This time, it's inconvenient to follow your conscience. So don't do it. You know, it seems to me like that's an awfully convenient thing to do. And when you get kind of the most credit and when I think you make the most change is when it's inconvenient to follow your conscience, which it would be here. I just think the players should do what they feel is right.
Yeah, but sometimes what you think is right is detrimental to you and detrimental to the overall agenda. If this hadn't happened, that's one thing. But when the noise has already been made, chances are you're going to create more cynicism and bring more vitriol your way. But at the same time, it's not going to be effective. If it was going to really affect change, if it were a LeBron James or somebody of that magnitude, you would have a point. But LeBron James already said he's standing for the national anthem. He's not somebody that's going to take a knee or raise a fist. So if he's already taken that position and the popular marquee names in basketball have already decided to take that position, then we're talking about relatively marginal players that may end up taking these stances. And who the hell are they to do that? Some people might say. And that could lead to you being ostracized, and it may not be worth it when the point has already been made.
First Take Cleveland special. Look at these fans are the best, turning out nice and early to join the show. And Mr. Stephen A. Smith. The Land, of course, is hosting a World Series game tonight, and the defending NBA champions will host the Knicks. So Believe Land has turned things around, but as for those New York Knickerbockers, Max Kellerman, they have not won a championship, which you know very well, since 1973. This question might seem a little bit harsh, but are they now the worst franchise in sports, Max?
The answer is yes. Unequivocally, they're the worst franchise in sports. They won in January of 73, the 72-73 season. I was born in August of that year. I'm 43 years old. I have yet to see a Knicks championship. Now, New York City, sorry, Cleveland, and many other places, Hong Kong, London, Tokyo, Moscow, whatever you want to mention, let alone L.A., D.C., or Chicago, New York City is the center of the known universe. It is the most important place on earth by any objective measure. And New York City is basketball crazy. It is the #1 sport in the city. Don't believe the hype about the Yankees. They're the hugest franchise and all that, but that's only because the Knicks don't win. Proof. In the late 80s, when Patrick Ewing was leading a very good but not great team, they didn't win any championships, the Knicks got $1,500 a pop for courtside seats. What were the Yankees getting for their best seat at the time, or the Giants? $100, something like that? And it's not even a supply or demand issue, and demand issue when you look at the number of tickets available. There's no way the Knicks should have been getting 10 times what the Giants and Yankees got, and yet they did it. There has been zero competition until very recently in the 5 boroughs for the fans' affections. The Nets were in Jersey for the longest. There's no competition, and yet with no competition in the most crazy basketball place in the world, which is also the center of the known universe, the ineptitude of this franchise, and forget about just the 43 years no chips, they are frequently a laughing stock. They're not a well-run organization that just fails to go all the way a lot of the time. They are frequently a laughingstock with James Dolan, arguably the worst owner in sports. The Knicks are, in fact, the answer, considering the city, considering the level of basketball interest, and considering their not only futility in the postseason, but their laughingstock status on an annual basis. They are the worst franchise in sports, Stephen A. Smith.
I'm going to disagree with you, even though I'm disgusted with my Knicks these days. I'm still going to disagree with you and come to their defense in this regard. There's a Sacramento Kings squad that has been in turmoil. They haven't been in the playoffs in 10 years, and there's nothing else going on in Sacramento. You want to watch baseball, you want to watch football, you got to go an hour and a half away to San Francisco in order to pull that off for Oakland, okay? I look at that. And they don't have any championship on their resume. In football, I look at the Jacksonville Jaguars. They've been to conference finals in 1999. Ever since then, they've got 2 playoff appearances and nothing else to speak of. They've been a moribund franchise on their way to nowhere for many years. I'm going to put them into the equation. I'll stay in the city of New York. And although I'm happy that Todd Bowles is there and I believe that he can help get this turned around, and McCagnon as well, the New York Jets have not won a Super Bowl since 1969. That was Super Bowl III. Joe Namath is still popular in New York because of that, okay? Joe Namath. And that's really what this comes down to. So when I look at it from that perspective, am I happy with the New York Knicks? Absolutely not. But they did go to the finals in 1994. They did go back to the finals in 1999. They did go to the playoffs and win the semifinals of the Eastern Conference playoffs more than 3 years ago when Mike Woodson was their coach before Phil Jackson interrupted everything by bringing Derek Fisher in to coach the team. And then after that, Kurt Rambis. And now he's got Jeff Hornacek, and we're wondering when Phil's going to leave for L.A. All of these things are true. But in the end, there's been plenty of franchises that have been worse than the New York Knicks. Is bad as the New
not
York
considering the
Knicks have been.
stakes. I'll even address the Jets' point. See, every major market, when they have 2 teams, generally, you have the heritage franchise, the Yankees, and the clown franchise, most years, the Mets, although not recently. The heritage franchise, the Giants, and the clown franchise, most years, the Jets. The heritage franchise in New York for basketball is the clown franchise. The Knicks are a clown franchise, and they're the heritage team in the biggest market that is basketball crazy. It is beyond, as a reformed Knicks fan, all I can tell you, because I don't know if I can root for them so long as Dolan owns the team, it is beyond infuriating. It's beyond infuriating. I don't know what else to say about it. He's got to sell the team. Even now, Knicks fans like you are thinking they can make the conference finals. They're not making a conference finals this year. They got no bench. Derrick Rose isn't what he was. I mean, even this year. And because the fans are so loyal to the Knicks and they sell out every game no matter what, they remain a terrible franchise. They're the worst. And they're getting better, and they're still terrible.
Well, you're still talking. They went to the playoffs 12 straight years. Eastern Conference Finals during the whole Patrick Ewing era. They went to the finals twice in the 90s. The ineptitude that has really sullied this franchise was for a decade, but I just brought up to you the Jaguars and the Sacramento Kings and others. That's why I can make
You're going to compare Jacksonville and Sacramento to New York City?
Yes. In terms of ineptitude, yes, I am.
Think about the number of fans that they disappoint. Where the Knicks have 20 million fans, how many fans does Sacramento Kings have? Like, think about that.
No. Well, you're thinking about, as usual, you're thinking about numbers. I'm thinking about impact. If you're in Sacramento and you have nothing to do but basketball, it's a problem. It's just like the Lakers. They stink now, even though I think they're going in a good direction with Luke Walton. But if that doesn't work out, there's other things to do. If the Rams don't work out, there's other things to do. You're in Sacramento. What you got? You're in Jacksonville. What do you have? So to me, you're making the arguments in terms of populace and how more people, how more people are impacted. I'm saying to you, the fan base that you have, when you disappoint them, a legitimate argument could be that it resonates more profoundly with them because they have nowhere to turn, because they don't have a baseball team or they don't have a football team.
Fans,
New York has everything.
You're going to compare the sadness of 3 million fans to 20 million fans. Yeah, I get it. No, it's not comparable. It's not comparable at all.
I said that distractions. I said that distractions.
Legends.
In other words, there's more to do.
I've spoken to Knicks.
You're living proof. That's why your argument doesn't make sense. Because you're living proof. You came from L.A. When things wasn't going on in L.A., what did you do? You found other things to do because you was chilling in the Southern Cali sunshine. That's what you were doing. But Sacramento, they don't have that option.
Who tell me that the Knicks don't even bring them back. The Knicks is a franchise. Hey, we'd all be willing to come back. And think about that championship team. Think about the caliber of person that was on that championship team between Clyde Frazier and Willis Reed and Dave DeBusschere and Bill Bradley, who ran for president. And the Knicks don't even trade on their history or heritage or traditions. They don't ask for those guys' help in every single way until very recently.
What does that have to do with the price of tea in China?
Anyone else, and they're still not run well enough.
Well, nobody said they run well enough. What I'm saying is there are other organizations that at least over the last 20 to 25 years that you can legitimately argue have been worse. That's all I'm saying.
Going back
Ain't nobody saying that
years.
the New York Knicks have run their organization.
We're saying
no,
now
that's not true.
you got to go back
because
to the
New York
90s.
in the 80s. That's right. I'm sorry, it's 2016. I didn't know it was 2030. I said 20 to 25
Go back
years.
over
I didn't say
15 years to
you
find
can't
any
count
measure
now?